The river screamed with the cries of newborn babes. The river that gave life was now a river of death, filled with the blood of Hebrew children. Night after night, the small bodies were cast into the Nile under Pharaoh's decree, and the waters that had once sustained Egypt with life carried away its most helpless. And a darkness, deeper than the blackness of the night, settled over the land of Goshen. In one of the houses of the Hebrews, a woman named Jochebed held her newborn son and felt the full measure of a mother's love. It was not a desperate love, nor a panicked one. It was a deep and steady love, a love that was fiercely protective. For 3 months she kept him hidden, nursing him in the quiet hours, listening for the sound of soldiers in the streets, measuring every breath the child took against the danger that waited outside the door. When she could hide him no longer, she did what only a mother of great faith and greater love could do. She made for him a basket of bulrush, sealed it with bitumen and pitch, and laid her son inside of it. She looked at her child, the small face, the rise and fall of his chest. Her heart was already filled with longing. And then she set the basket among the reeds at the river's edge. She did not abandon him. She entrusted him with the Father who was in heaven. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to the river that morning to bathe. The light had moved across the water, and among the reeds she saw the ornate basket, and she had it brought to her. When she opened it, the child began to cry. The sound of the baby had reached her heart before any thought of her father's decree entered into her mind. And something human and unexpected rose inside her. She looked at the weeping infant and knew he was a Hebrew child, but she did not turn him away. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she said. The child's sister, who had watched from a distance, stepped forward and offered to find a nurse from among the Hebrew women, and Pharaoh's daughter agreed that a nurse should be had for the child. And so Jochebed received her own son back into her arms, not as a mother with the right to claim him, but as a nurse paid to care for the boy who now belonged to the house of Pharaoh. Every day she held him was a mercy she had not expected. Every day she loved him, knowing the day would come when she must give him up once again. When the child grew older, he was brought to Pharaoh's daughter and became his son. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Moses grew up between two worlds. In the palace, he learned the language, the history, the power of Egypt. He was called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He walked in fine linen and was trained in the wisdom of the court. Yet beneath all of it, a quieter knowledge remained. He knew the blood that ran in his veins. He knew the people who labored under the lash only a short distance from the palace gates. As the years passed, that knowledge became a weight that he could no longer ignore. So he began to go out among his people and look at their burdens. And in one day, he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew. And in that moment, something rose inside him, a sudden, fierce force. He looked this way and that way, and he saw no one. And he struck down the Egyptian, and he hid his body in the sand. And he thought the matter was finished. But the next day came, and he went out again, and he found two Hebrews quarreling among one another. He tried to speak peace between them, but one of them turned to him with bitter words and said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed that Egyptian?" The secret was known. The people he had hoped to help had rejected him, and the palace that had raised him now sought to take his very life. So Moses fled. He came to the land of Midian as a man stripped of every title and every plan. And alone, he sat by a well, exhausted both physically and emotionally. But the years that followed were not empty. He married Zipporah, the daughter of the priest of Midian. He became a husband. He became a father. He learned the long, quiet labor of tending to another man's flock in the wilderness. And the fire that had once driven him, it did not die. It was tempered. The ambition of the prince was slowly reshaped into the patience of a shepherd. And so for 40 years, he lived in the wilderness in Midian. And 40 years that passed, he was hidden in the wilderness. And the day arrived that would divide his life in two. Moses was leading a flock toward the west side of the wilderness, near Horeb, the mountain of God, when he saw a bush burning with fire. But the bush was not consumed by the fire. The sight held him. Transfixed, he turned aside and looked more closely. And from the midst of the bush, God called him by name. Moses. Moses. The voice was not loud, yet it filled the whole of the world. Moses answered, "Here I am." "Do not come near," the voice said. "Take the sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face. The weight of that presence was more than his human strength could bear, and he was afraid to look upon God. Then the Lord spoke of his people. He had seen their affliction. He heard their cry. He knew their suffering, and he had come down to deliver them. "Come," he said, "I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." The words fell upon Moses with the force of a calling he had once imagined in the strength of his youth and had long since laid it down. And he answered with the honesty of a man who knew his own weaknesses. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" In this moment, God did not restore Moses' confidence in himself. No, he gave him something greater, and he said, "I will be with you." Still, Moses hesitated. "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I tell them?" And God said, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" The name was not an explanation. It was a revelation. The God who had seemed silent for generations now spoke his own eternal name into the fear of a shepherd. The one who is, the one who was, the one who will be. The God who does not change and does not abandon his own. But again, Moses still resisted, speaking of his slow speech and his lack of eloquence. And God answered that he was the one who made the mouth. He gave Moses the staff in his hand, the power to perform signs. He gave him Aaron to stand beside him. And at last, Moses bowed beneath the call that he could no longer refuse. He took his wife and his sons. He sent them on a donkey. He turned his face toward Egypt, and he carried in his hand the staff of God. What followed was not the triumph of a strong man. It was the obedience of a man who had learned that the strength was not his own. Then the days came when Moses stood before Pharaoh time and time again with the same message. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may serve me. And each time Moses spoke those words, Pharaoh hardened his heart. And each time the Lord stretched out his hand against Egypt. The water of the Nile became blood. Frogs covered the land. Gnats and flies swarmed with thick clouds. Livestock died in the fields. Boils broke out on man and beast. Hail struck down everything that was left in the open, and locusts devoured what the hail had spared. And then a darkness covered the land for 3 days, a darkness so deep that the weight of it could be felt on the skins and in the bones. Through every plague, Moses carried the weight of a people who often turned their fear against him, even as he stood for their freedom. He knew the loneliness of the man caught between a hard-hearted king and a wary, frightened nation. Then came the night that would be remembered as long as the world endures. The Lord told Moses of one final judgment. At midnight, every firstborn in the land of Egypt was to die. But for the people of Israel, God himself provided a covering. Each household was to take a lamb without blemish, kill it, and place its blood on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the house. That night, they were to eat of the flesh of the lamb with unleavened bread and the bitter herbs, dressed and ready to leave at a moment's notice. When the destroyer passed through the land, he would pass over every house marked by the blood. That night, a great cry rose in Egypt, such as never been heard before and will never be heard again. There was not a house that did not have someone dead, but in the houses under the blood, there was life. The same God who brought judgment on Egypt sheltered his people beneath the sign he had given them. Then they went out of their house in haste. The dough was still unleavened in their kneading bowls. They asked the Egyptians for silver and gold and clothing, and the Lord gave them favor in the sight of all the Egyptians. After 430 years, the children of Israel left Egypt with the presence of God going before them, a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Then they came to the sea. Behind them, the chariots of Pharaoh drew near, the sound of wheels and horses growing louder like approaching thunder. In front of them, the water stretched out without end. Terror swept through the camp of Moses. The people cried out to the Lord and turned to Moses with bitter words. It is because there is no graves in Egypt that you have taken us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness. What have you done to us in bringing us out of the land of Egypt? Moses answered them with words that rose from a place deeper than fear. Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians who you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Then the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. Moses stretched out his hand. The Lord drove the waters back by the strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land. The waters were divided. The people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall on each side of them, on the right hand and on the left. When the Egyptians pursued, the Lord threw them into a confusion. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. Then Moses once more stretched out his hand, and the sea returned to its normal course. The waters covered the chariots and the horsemen, all the army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. Israel saw the great and awesome power the Lord used against the Egyptians that day. The people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. On the far shore, Moses and the people of Israel sang. Miriam, Moses' sister, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and with dancing. And they sang the songs that rose into the desert air, a song of the horse and the rider thrown into the sea, a song of a God and his glorious power, a song of the one who redeems. Moses began as a child under a sentence of death, drawn out of the water by the hand of God. He became a prince who tried to deliver his people by his own strength, and he failed. He became a husband and a father in his quiet years in the wilderness, learning a different kind of life than the one that he had ever imagined. He stood before a burning bush with nothing but a staff and the knowledge of his own weaknesses. And there he met the I Am. He stood before Pharaoh. He stretched his hands over the sea, and through him, God brought a nation out of bondage. The blood on the doorposts pointed forward to a greater lamb. The path through the sea pointed forward to a greater deliverance. The man who was drawn out of the water became the instrument by which God drew a whole people out of slavery. And the same God who called Moses by name still sees his people. He still hears their cry, and he still comes down to deliver. He makes a way when there is no way. The God of Moses is the I Am, the same as yesterday, today, and forever. He's still drawing people out of the waters that should have drowned by them. And he is still leading them through every fear and every impossibility into the freedom that only he can give. This is the story of Moses. This is dust to glory. God bless you. Bye for now.
Three, two, one, talk to me.